And a good morning, Birds fans. Appreciate you streaming in on a thirsty Thursday. I'm going to have a lot of coffee. Here with us on Birds 365. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We're here to hang with you for the next 2 hours. Got two good guests coming your way, John Stolnis and Rick Saratella. So you want to stay tuned for those two gents. Johnny Mac did not know that DeAndre Swift was going to be making his first official appearance as an Eagle, not here in Philadelphia. He's a Philly boy, but got a chance to talk to him, did the Philadelphia media yesterday. And I don't know, maybe it's because I thought it would be a good trade ahead of time before the Eagles ever pulled the trigger on it. I'd never really seen the kid interviewed all that much during his playing career. It seemed like a good young man, a motivated young man, a happy young man, and a pretty smart young man at that. What did you take out of the DeAndre Swift meet and greet yesterday?
Yeah, Llama Day Zacchaeus as well. It was St. Joe's Prep Day down at the NovaCare complex. Obviously, it was virtual for us, but reporters. But yeah, both of them spoke yesterday for the first time since returning home. Yeah, I mean, you know, one thing about Kirby Smart in Georgia, I said the same thing about Nolan Smith and Kaylee Ringo. You know, they're N'Kobe Dean as well. If you want to go back, and Jordan Davis, they're all very well spoken. They're all and even Jalen Carter, he gets all the obviously what because of what happened off the field, but it's not like he comes in as a bad guy. Seems very likable. I think they're doing a pretty good job down there getting people ready for life, not just football. From all indications of the people that have come to Philadelphia, so kudos to him. DeAndre is just another one.
Sounds like he'll fit in because I thought what you said yesterday was smart. He paid deference to Jalen Hurts. Smart thing to do. He is the quarterback. He is the leader of the franchise. He's the face of the franchise, let's be honest. And said he's looking forward to playing with him and working with him and learning from him exactly what you wanted to hear. And that he just looks at himself as a piece of the puzzle. That he's not coming in here, first-round draft pick, 1,000-yard rusher. He's going to come in here and be the offense. He knows that's not the case. We know that's not the case. And that's a good place to start if the guy's got the right attitude. Sometimes when you get dealt, and one of the more interesting things I thought yesterday was it seemed to me like for him it came out of left field, that he did not necessarily see this coming, that he thought he was going to be the lead back in Detroit again and didn't know that they were potentially going to go in another direction and trade him. Sometimes that happens. You cop a bit of an attitude. I'll show them. I'll go to Philly and get 2,000 yards. And no, he handled it well yesterday, and that he realized, yeah, Philly's got some pretty damn good offensive weapons. I'm just going to be asked to go in there and be a piece of the puzzle. I was very glad to hear the way he stated yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I think he knew. He didn't know before the draft. He kind of, because if you think about it, last year they had the two-headed beast at running back, and then they lost Williams, but they brought in Montgomery. So from his standpoint, it's just a different sort of setup, different guy as a compatriot. I don't even want to see compliment because those two kind of shared it, but once he saw Gibbs go at 12, he knew the writing was on the wall. He did get a follow-up and admitted to that. And we all did. That's Howie was probably on the phone 15 seconds later. You draft a kid number 12 overall, you sign somebody in free agency, got room for anybody else. So it was almost a fait accompli at that point. And look, it's a good opportunity for him. He talked, I asked him about running behind that offensive line. Detroit has a very good offensive line, but the Eagles, they arguably have the best offensive line in football. And plus you have Jalen Hurts and the +1 aspect we always talk about, creating space for the running backs. Defense is always concerned about him pulling the football on the backside. There's not a better place in the NFL for a running back.
Right. If I'm playing running back in the NFL and have my choice, land where I want, Philadelphia would be right at the top of my list. One other thing, and maybe you recognize the voice, I didn't. When they went to talking about Hard Knocks and the fact that the Lions were the team on Hard Knocks last year and quote unquote his portrayal on Hard Knocks, which I don't think he really had a portrayal, but in the first episode, Deuce Staley was kind of tough on him that he's got to turn his shoulders and make the tackler pay rather than skitter out of bounds. Nothing that should surprise us here in Philadelphia, right? Deuce Staley was a hard-nosed, you can use another word in there, type coach. His time here in Philadelphia, that's just Deuce.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you got this scared cat who's going to run out of bounds all the time. Deuce had to get inside his no. Deuce does that with everybody. That's the way Deuce coaches. That wasn't anything different. I don't think it was a knock on DeAndre Swift. I've been saying this, John, for long before you and I ever started doing shows. I got no problems with a running back who on 1st and 10, rather than dropping his shoulders and getting a first down, it skips out of bounds and makes it 2nd and 7. Those 2 yards are not going to decide the game, but it keeps the running back in the game. I'm perfectly fine with. There are times, 3rd down, yeah, you got to get the first down. You got to do whatever it takes to move those chains. But on 1st down, if he scampers out of bounds, some of the greatest backs in the history of the National Football League use the sideline as their friend. I think that's a complete non-factor. Do you think?
No, yeah, back? Who the best ever was at that? Emmitt Smith.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, would just get everything he could and just step out of bounds. And I think, I don't know, 18,000 yards later, it seems to have worked out for him. So I'm with you. There's no, the opposite, if you're going to put your shoulder down. And I always say the only time I ever saw Frank Reich mad, nicest guy in the world, doesn't curse. The only time I ever saw him mad, different, not a running back, but when Carson Wentz put his shoulder down in Carolina and tried to bulldoze in the end zone, and that's your quarterback. So it's even more of a concern. There's no need to do that. You're just going to get hurt. And if you're a key part of the team, it's smart football. But that's one of the things you bring up. Deuce Staley, and now he's in Carolina. But when he was in Detroit, and obviously we know Dan Campbell, they run things in more of an old school way than they run them here. And I think the players like it better here, to be honest. And we can argue, and we have argued. We talked about that forever, but last year, but it worked. So until it doesn't work, I think DeAndre is going to be a little happier here with the practice workload, the off-season workload, and all that kind of stuff.
I like Hard Knocks. At least the one in the beginning of the season. The mid-season one just doesn't work as well for me. But I watched every single episode last year. Detroit Lions, who the hell cares? Why I care? Because they're on Hard Knocks. And I think it's a really well-done show, and it gets you ready for an upcoming season. My takeaway for DeAndre Swift on that was, is he on a team? Because they kept featuring Jamal Williams every single way. And they talk more about the guys who aren't going to make the cut, so they don't show you highlights from the first quarter of preseason games. I almost forgot that he was on the team. I guess he was mentioned, and Deuce yelled at him a little bit in the first episode. But no, I think DeAndre Swift is going to be a very good fit here. So that leads itself to the question of, how is he a fit here? Last year, I looked it up, John. I was actually surprised by the numbers. Carries by running backs. Not Jalen Hurts runs, because those are different. And the coach is on record as saying, we're paying him more. It doesn't mean I'm going to use him less. So expect his workload to be about the same. Now, seasons are different. Maybe they're in more competitive games next year. Got a different guy calling the plays than last year. So I'm not going to just comp one to the other. But if you believe they're going to be similar, how big a percentage do you think Miles Sanders had of running back runs last year?
Oh, quite a bit. I don't have it in front of me, but I mean, he had
I
a
do.
career,
I did the math. I just
yeah,
wanted to see off the top of your head what the number was.
75. We're taking out the quarterback, right?
Yeah, quarterback runs are out.
75 or
Yeah,
80.
it was 71% of the Eagles' runs by running backs last year with Miles Sanders.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to get those runs. Is it going to be DeAndre Swift? Is it going to be Rashad Penny? Does Trey Sermon's production double from 2 to 4 carries this upcoming year? That's something that needs to be figured out, and it'll be the offensive brain trust of the Eagles that will do so. I'm okay with them going into the season. I like Miles. I wanted to see Miles stay. He got an average NFL payday to go to Carolina. Not blow the roof off the payroll, but
It's
not
good
on
for running back payroll.
Exactly.
I think at some point he was number one. I don't think if anybody passed him, I'd have to look, but yeah,
Free agency wise, yeah, he was number
free
one.
agency
Right.
wise, I meant. He was number one on the free agent, so it is what it is, but that's pretty good to be number one.
And he should have been. He was, for at least for me.
When you talk about Jamal Williams, I mean, what that guy had, I don't know, 16, 17 touchdowns last year.
He did, but he didn't have 1,200 yards the way that Miles did.
He had over $1,000 though. I don't know exactly what he had, but I know he won over 1,000. But no, he didn't have as much as Miles, and obviously he's not as explosive as Miles. But 17 touchdowns—that's pretty impressive. But getting back to 71%, yeah, you got to replace the carries. But Moneyball, you don't have one. It doesn't have to be one guy. You got to replace the efficacy, and that's where Swift and Penny come in. So if Penny gets hurt, maybe Swift picks it up, or vice versa, because they both have an injury history. Rashad's much more significant than Swift's, but Swift has missed, he's sort of like Miles before last year. Miles would miss a couple games every year, and last year he stayed healthy. That's partially one of the reasons he got up to 71% of that number. If you miss 3 or 4 games, it's going to skew it, and that's typically been his history. That's been Swift's history as well, missing a few games every season. Not serious injuries. That I think he played 13, if I'm not mistaken. I looked at it a while ago in his 3 seasons, which is kind of weird, but nonetheless, a couple games missed each year. Same as Miles, and who knows if you stay healthy, things get better. Obviously, from a production standpoint, but Howie's been pretty consistent, man. I mean, they're expecting a little bit of a shift. They know they got lucky on the injury front last year, and I give them credit for that, because they're not. At some point, I was thinking, they think they've gamed the system with their philosophy and how they run things, and to a certain degree, they believe it's. Not to a certain degree, they believe that's the right way to do things. But he is cognizant of it's probably not going to be like it was last year. He said it multiple occasions. So I think he's well aware. And Miles was one of those guys who was typically had the history of missing 2-3 games at least, and he was out there. So that helps.
Yeah, the Eagles would prefer you use the phrase law of averages rather than luck. They get all worked up when you go, you got lucky. There's no such thing as luck. It's the way you do things, doing things right that get you the result that you need. Well, the law of averages say that the Eagles will not be as injury-free this upcoming season as they were last year. I agree with you. It's luck, John. They just don't like to use that word, but there is some luck involved here, and Howie can dismiss it all that he wants. But I agree with you. They've done a nice job at giving themselves at certain positions, not every position, linebacker. Do they have depth where if they do have a rash of injuries this year, they've got guys who can come off the bench and get the job done. All right, coming off our bench, joining us is John Stolnis from Bleeding Green Nation. He's going to be the first guest today. Stay right here with Mac and Mac on Birds 365.
Do you